What is going on today is self-review. So, if I'm being quite honest with you, self-reviews are probably the single most important. In fact, they are the single most important thing um, that has been the biggest difference in my trading. It hasn't been the strategy, although do have an amazing strategy, which you've learned here. Um, you know, I always, used to hop from strategy to strategy. And, I spent a long time thinking that I was making progress. I thought that I was, doing really, really well. I thought that I was, on the right path, and I would keep making the same mistakes. I would consistently be losing. And to be totally honest with you, I just really didn't know what I was doing wrong. I was kind of guessing. I wasn't keeping track of anything. And it wasn't until I started self-reviewing my progress each week um, that I actually began to build up a really, really clear picture. Because what self-review does for you is it allows you to see your patterns in black and white in front of you. There are some things that that it's very easy for you to overlook at the end of each week. If you haven't kept track of any of your trades, you think, oh well, I really struggled with this week, like the markets weren't with me. But then when you go over your results and you tracked them, then you can be like, well, wait a second, the markets were actually fine. But if I'd just done this, like if I just followed this particular rule, or I didn't actually follow that rule in my plan, when you go over this, you are going to see an overwhelming pattern. And what it's going to do for you is it's going to allow you to take action and create specific steps to overcome specific problems. And if you tackle one problem at a time, then what is going to happen over time is you are guaranteeing that no matter what happens, you are improving. Okay. Because the worst thing is putting in loads and loads of hours of work. Okay. But the hours that you're putting in are not utilizing smart work. Okay. Because you want to be guaranteeing that you are moving forward and moving upwards, obviously. So this week here was this year, November 2020, at the time of recording this, only just still. And this wasn't like the best of weeks for me. It wasn't bad, but it was okay. And I just at the end of this week, I was feeling pretty bummed out. My discipline had been, not perfect by any stretch. But I still managed to do okay-ish. So yeah. So anyway, look, so this is the basic structure of it. I also include a template to this as well. So the overall P&L was 2.7%. Okay. Days traded, I traded all 5. This is when I was heavily scalping this week. Number of trades taken, 27. Okay, so the number of trades planned but not taken, 3. Okay, now bring it back to the journal template. I will have a green for a win. Obviously, I'm not including the R here. And then for missed trades, I will put an orange tab like this. Let me just move this to thing just for your information. And so if I see a setup ahead of time, not one after, like before it's happened, I plan it out, for whatever reason I don't take it, then I will include that in this number here. The next thing is the number of wins. So 15 wins and 8 losses in this case, 3 break evens and 55% strike rate. Average risk reward was 2.28 R. Okay. So very, very simple, very, very basic stats. Doesn't take long to fill out. You can probably do this whole thing in, this whole self-review process in 15 minutes a week. Okay. And if you can't put in 15 minutes a week to something like this, or sometimes 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, then, I really would have to question whether you are really committed to this or not. And I do actually feel quite sorry for you if you are not committed, because, the worst thing in the world would be to kind of dip your feet in FX and trading and think that over time you're just going to get to where you want to go just because you've been putting some time in. Unfortunately, you have to commit, you have to put in the hours, you have to do what is required. Okay. And so next step is what went well. Now, immediately compared to the next section, which is the top emotional problems, notice how I've got 6 things that went well and 1 thing as my emotional problem. Okay. This is really, really crucial because it's very, very easy. When I first started self-reviewing, I'd have 100, I'd have like 50 emotional problems and things that I didn't like about my week. And then I'd, maybe put 1 thing that went well. And what that would do, it would actually kind of spiral me on a bit of a negative spiral. That's terribly drawn. It would kind of spiral me like this on a kind of negative spiral, basically downwards. Okay, because I'll be like, oh, look at all these things I'm doing wrong. Like, this self-review is just highlighting all the areas that I'm shit, and blah blah blah. Doing this, forcing yourself to think about what went well this week. What did you do? What did you do that is really, really good and, that you can be proud of? Doing this, it forces you to look at the positives. And this is going to start building your confidence as a trader, because you're going to be like, well, in this case, I followed the main entry criteria for the overwhelming majority of positions. I managed to trade my plan effectively, even when away. By this, I mean away from charts, like not sitting down like in my office, as in away, like I was out and about. I managed to successfully optimize my alert system that prevents me staring at charts for even more time, which reduces entry mistakes even further. Despite some rocky risk management when waiting for a 1 to 3, I made sure that my risk reward was always positive, which put me at a gain for the week. I had only 1 or 2 scenarios where I over leveraged. I found that by using multiple pairs, there are more alerts and less room for overthinking and being overly critical. Okay, so this was for the 1 minute strategy that I was trading this week. The 1 minute strategy I don't teach here in the course. It's on my YouTube channel. I don't actually recommend it anymore so much to beginners, because it is incredibly emotionally taxing, and the win rate can be very, very low, despite it being overall it's very positive, profitability wise, but it is not the win rate is just not as good, because you haven't got that higher time frame perspective. So yeah, so I focused on these 6 things that went well. So after, you've actually put your mind to it, and, you're thinking naturally, you're thinking, okay, look, I've actually done really, really well this week. Then you move on with that understanding to what your top emotional problems were. Now, to identify this, I'll go back to my journal and I'll look at all of the notes that I have, and I'll look for common things that I've done wrong. What I used to do is I used to copy all of the notes, and I would copy them into a section below all of these areas down here, and I'd put them here, and then I'd go over and I'd see which note, which problem was the most common problem that was being faced. Okay, and so this week it was not being systematic with stop loss placement. Okay, now that's not the biggest emotional problem, I wouldn't say, but it seems that this week it was the main problem I was having, because I think I was doing stops based on where I thought price was going to go, and I kind of had a bit of a rocky week with discipline on this specific week. So this could be something like, I don't know, this could be like not holding trades to target, and then what causes that? Fear of loss. Okay, so once you have this, let's say it's this, because this is a better example. Okay, then you can go and start formulating your plan for next week. Okay, answer strategic problems, which is basically up here, where it's where I talk about, okay, what are some things or questions that came up with the strategy? Is there something that's not clear in my plan that I need to go away over the weekend and figure out what the answer to that is? In this case, it was, okay, well, would I be served better with no break-even rule? And here it was, should I enter without the candle close and just kind of eyeball it? Okay, I can tell you that both of the answers here were no break-even, and no candle close was actually the answer to that. But that's for a different strategy, so it doesn't matter. So anyway, so my plan for next week was consistent risk management, which were kind of aligned with my systematic stop loss placement. These are not actually very, very good examples to show you how you should be using this. If you have your plan for next week, your number one thing, let's say that you have struggled holding trades to target. You want to use an environmental factor, and you want to use a psychological factor. You can just use one of these, but I like to use both when trying to overcome a problem. What do I mean by this? Well, you need to think of something in your environment that you can mold ahead of time to make sure that it's harder for you to make the wrong emotional decision. So for example, not holding trades to target, and you've got a bit of a fear of loss. Okay, an environmental factor could be once you've entered, set alert at target and stop loss, and walk away from the charts. Okay, that could be an environmental factor, because if you're not in front of the screen, it's going to be harder for you to obsess about it to the same degree as if you're watching every single tick, every single price movement. Okay, psychological factor could be something like meditate before sitting down at the charts, and or after a loss. Okay, so these would be two really, really good things that you could move forward into the next week. Okay, there's also something else I want to mention, which is probably the most important thing of this whole thing, which is only solve one problem at a time. Okay, this is so important. Okay, because it's very, very easy to list out emotional problems and just want to solve all of them. Be like, okay, my risk management wasn't good. I'm going to be better with my risk management next week. I'm also going to hold my trades to target. I'm also not going to hesitate. And I'm also going to, not be scared of missing out and blah, 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 blah. And like, I'm sure that you've done this in the past. You kind of go into the new trading week, you pumped yourself up watching YouTube videos and you're like, sweet, this week, like I'm going to do it. Like I can do all of these things. And then you get there and, the stress of it all. And before you know it, you've kind of broken all of your rules and you haven't actually ended up solving any of those problems. Okay. We are not designed to multitask. Okay. So you must focus on solving one problem at a time. Okay. And so in this example, this is exactly why I focus on having the top emotional, not the top emotional, in fact, top emotional problem here, not problems. Okay. It's absolutely critical that you are just putting one here, because you only need and you only should be solving one problem. And until you solve that problem, everything else can wait. Okay. I don't care if the rest of your trading sucks and you're making loads of mistakes, because if you master one thing, if you overcome that one specific thing, once you've done that, then you can move on to the next. Once you've done that, you can move on to the next. And then you are eliminating, you're guaranteeing that over time, you're cutting out of those problems, you're getting out of them, and you're not just trying to solve 1,000 different things at once. Okay. This is absolutely critical. One problem at a time only. That's it. And then once you've done this, once you've made your plan for the next week, you simply go away, trade as normal, journal what you've been doing. And then the next week, you review again. What have you done this next week? How have you improved? Have you improved? Have you had a loss? What are some things that you can improve on? Go through the exact same process every week. Okay. And at the end of each month, if you choose to, or at the end of each quarter, you can go back over these reviews and look and map out your progress. And I'm going to give you a template for that as well. Okay, so this is the monthly review template. Okay, now this is going to be a little bit more extensive, and you can always change this to quarterly review, so you don't have to do it every month. It depends on how keen that you are. It's just in a little bit more depth than the weekly one, and it's just going to kind of help you identify where you are on your journey. Again, it's removing the guessing. It's removing, I've been doing this for 10 months now, like I'm definitely close to, reaching my goals because I've put so much time in, I can just tell you from experience that time doesn't always equal results. Okay. If you're not using that time effectively. Okay. So very, very simple. You want your overall P&L, and then separately you want your pips P&L. So for example, you could have plus 3% and then plus, 3 and whatever your percentage is. And then your pips could be plus 600 pips and you've made 3%. Okay. And so that's just going to help you to see the difference between the two. And then the next one is days traded, number of trades taken, same as we were before on the weekly one. Then we've got what percentage of the trades that I took followed my entry plan. Okay. This is important because, this basically saying how many of the trades that you took actually fit your rules. Because, if you've got 60 losses and 20 wins, okay, just in a really negative example, okay, and you're thinking, oh God, I'm a shit trader, but then you go over it and only 30% of your trades followed your entry plan, then you can't be judging the actual results that you got. Your results are, the problem with you is following your entry rules. And then that could be your top problem to work on. Okay, I'm just going to follow my entry rules. I don't care what the result is. I'm just going to follow my entry rules. Okay. So you see, by having this and understanding this and knowing this, what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to see, okay, is there a problem with my plan, or am I the problem and I need to kind of fix a particular area with my approach in order for me to get to that next level. Okay. So this is a very, very important question. Next one kind of follows on from it. It's what percentage of my winning trades followed my plan. Okay. Again, if you have 80% of your winning trades followed your plan, and the 20% of your losing trades, most of them didn't follow your plan, then that's just more reason to follow your plan. Or on the flip side of that, if 80% of your winning trades didn't fit your plan, and the ones that you took which did fit your plan, assuming you've got enough of them, which I'd say is at least kind of 30 to 40 bare minimum, okay, then you maybe can start looking at things and going, right, okay, like maybe there's something I need to double check here and fix. Okay. Next thing, what percentage of trades follow my management plan? Okay, now don't overthink this. Don't think, oh, what's an entry plan? What's a management plan? The entry plan is simply your rules for entering the trade. Okay, we know if this happens, if this happens, if this happens, if trend line breaks, displacement zone, we come back in, we get our entry. But the management plan is essentially how well we've managed our trades. Have we stayed in trades as long as we should have done? Have we, held them to target? Have we allowed things to hit our stop loss? Have we followed all of our management rules? Okay, and those are just basically the two separate parts of your trading plan. Okay, and I would actually advise, I didn't include it in the initial video, but I would actually advise having, splitting this up. Followed entry plan, followed management plan, because then this is going to be a lot easier when you do these monthly reviews. About how kind of well you're performing. And remember, look, if you want to do the monthly review every single week and just kind of, because it is just basically a more extensive thing, you're more than welcome to do that. Okay. It just depends how keen you are, essentially. So average pip win. Okay. So how many pips did you win on average? How many pips did you lose on average? Strike rate, overall potential P&L if you had taken all your planned trades. Remember, I said if you include your missed trades, you could add those pips in there. And then the potential P&L if I hadn't taken the trades that didn't fit my plan and took the ones that did. Okay, so you're just going to be using the ones in your journal that you can see. And you're just going to be going over and, going back to these examples. If 80% of your winning trades did fit your plan and the 20% that didn't, of your losers didn't fit your plan, then you can begin removing some of those losers. Basically remove every single trade that didn't fit your plan and then recalculate how many pips you made for the month. So very, very simple, very, very simple. Okay, so the next thing is what went well, progress. The same thing as with the weekly review. You want to be listing out a good number of things here. Normally between 5 to 10 is great of things that went really, really well. And then you want to be asking yourself, did I overcome at least one emotional problem? And when I say overcome, this can basically just mean get it under control, because even when you have things under control, sometimes you still get the emotional issues. Like sometimes they still kind of creep through. Like I still get occasionally holding trades can be a bit of a nightmare, but I'm just infinitely better than I was at it, but I have it under control. Okay, so it's important to make that distinction. But yeah, this is going to be really, really good because it's going to tell you, okay, I've been focusing on one thing a lot. Has that worked to my benefit? Have I then been able to actually overcome it and kind of go through those problems and actually now do I have it under control? It's going to basically just be a progress check for you. Okay, next thing you're going to be talking about is your current top emotional problem. If this is the same thing as here, don't worry, just keep focusing on it. You'll get over it eventually. Stay consistent with focusing on one thing at a time. Top strategic problems, is the little questions like, should I be adding a break-even rule? Should I be adding this? Should I be adding that? Okay, and I can tell you from, experience that the trading plan that I've given you for now, you're not going to have too many questions. Besides like understanding it at the beginning, you're probably going to have quite a few questions. And, you know, when you come on here, you're going to be like, okay, well, did I draw my trend line right? Did I do this wrong or something like that? Okay. And that's absolutely fine. Okay. That's just part and parcel of what we are doing. Plan for next month, pretty self-explanatory, overcoming that emotional problem again. Questions, these are just general questions you might have, kind of maybe emotional or things that you're kind of struggling with. And then any feelings or thoughts about your progress put here. So sometimes I just put a little paragraph to summarize how I'm feeling at that current point in time. I might be like, okay, you know, it's been a good month, but, you know, I have been feeling a little bit down. I've started doubting, you know, my progress and blah, 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 blah. And it's just a nice place to kind of vent it out. And it's kind of like a written form of, I guess you could call it trader's therapy. So very, very simple, doesn't have to be complicated. But yeah, this is basically going to be an extremely, extremely powerful tool. And I highly recommend that you actually go and do this. In fact, I'm going to be very disappointed in those of you who don't go and do this, because this is so crucial in my opinion. And it's going to basically remove that guesswork from, you know, whether you are on the right track or whether you just think that you're on the right track. Because thinking that you're on the right track because you are just putting in the hours is just quite sad. Because it's just normally the hours that we put in are, you know, kind of desperately looking at the chart, you know, hoping to get every trade right and back test with 100% win rate and blah, blah, blah. And these are all just the wrong areas to focus on. Okay. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that you have seen the light and seen how important self-reviews are. And are going to start do them again. I'm going to leave the links for the monthly and weekly review templates below this video. So yeah, thank you for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed, and I'll see you on the next video.